Light reactions. So light travels in waves, and these waves our eyes can pick up. And the length of these waves depends on the color and the amount of energy. So shorter waves have more energy and longer waves have less. The shorter the length, the more violet the color is. The longer, the more red the color is. And then why is this important? Well, because we have these things in leaves called pigments. So chlorophyll is common to most photosynthetic cells. It absorbs almost all wavelengths of light except for green, which it reflects, which is why plants' leaves are mostly green. And we have different types of pigments within the plant cells. So we have chlorophyll A, which is going to be your blue-green pigment. And it's the only one that's able to transfer electrons directly to the light reactions. And then we have chlorophyll B, the carotenoids, and xanthophyll. These three are yellow-green, orange, and yellow respectively. And what these pigments do is they gather different wavelengths of light and are able to pass these on to photosynthesis, or to chlorophyll A, which passes the electrons on through electron transport chains in photosynthesis. Now, what's this picture we have here on the right? Well, this is called an action spectrum. And essentially, it shows us how these pigments are able to absorb different wavelengths of light. So for instance, the carotenoids can absorb like a high amount of I would say about 470 length of light. So that's nanometers. 470 nanometers of light, and probably about 450 nanometers of light is where it works best, which means that it absorbs these types of light and is able to pass it on to photosynthesis. And as you can see, green is very low, which means that the plant reflects these types of light and therefore will not absorb it. So photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, the purpose of it is to use a light and end up with glucose. And we have the overall equation in the top right corner here. So we're going to get 6 CO2 plus H2O, and then with the sun's energy we can make glucose and 6 oxygen, which is passed on as waste. So the part of the reaction we're going to be talking about today is the light reaction. And the light reaction happens in these things called the thylakoids. They're these little sort of oval things here. And a stack of these is called a granum. And they're found inside the chloroplast of cells, which are often found in the palisade mesophyll cells. And this is the site of photosynthesis. So the light reactions. So the purpose of the light reaction specifically, more than just turning into glucose, because glucose happens in the Calvin cycle, which is a completely different topic. But the purpose is to turn solar energy into chemical bond energy. And the products that we get out of this part of the reaction are NADPH, which is similar to NADH, except it is different because it is found in plants, and ATP, which is also used in the Calvin cycle, and both of these have various uses, which will be talked about in the Calvin cycle. Oh, jeez. So the photosystems. So the photosystems are essentially electron transport chains that are grouped along the thylakoid membranes, so right on the outside there. So chlorophyll A passes these electrons onto an electron transport chain, which moves these down and creates one of the two products. Usually it passes hydrogen ions out, creating a gradient which forces them to come back through ATP synthase and therefore create ATP, which is passed on to the Calvin cycle. And photosystem 1 is going to come before photosystem 2 is going to come before photosystem 1. This is because photosystem 1 was discovered first. Then we're going to talk about both cyclic and non-cyclic. Alright, so photosystem 2 is going to be part of our non-cyclic electron flow. We'll talk about what that means after. So as I said, it was discovered second, so it's called photosystem 2, but it comes before photosystem 1. It starts off when photolysis splits water using light energy. This doesn't really start it, but it's key to replenishing the electrons that are lost. So for this, we get 2 water molecules, and what those are going to give us is 4 protons, 4 electrons, and an oxygen molecule, which is excreted as waste, And that is why plants are good for the environment, because they put O2 into the environment, into the air atmosphere, so that we can breathe in cellular respiration. So how it actually starts off is a photon is absorbed by chlorophyll. And what this does is it excites an electron, and excites it so much that it causes it to go down an electron transport chain. And what this electron transport chain does, it's the same one that happens in cellular respiration, is it moves hydrogen ions across their gradient. And, well, this creates ATP because they try to diffuse back across the membrane, and they go through ATP synthase, which causes the creation of ATP, which is then moved on to the Calvin cycle. So that electron that goes down the electron transport chain, it doesn't just go away. It's still there, and where it goes to is photosystem 1, which is also part of the non-cyclic flow. So the electron is passed to photosystem 1, as I said. It's once again excited by the light energy from chlorophyll, so the same process as photosystem 2. Then it moves down another electron transport chain, and then it finally moves to the final electron acceptor, NADP+. And it takes this electron and becomes NADPH, which is passed to the Calvin cycle, and that is the end of our light reactions. But sometimes ATP piles up, or NADPH piles up, and we need some more ATP. So then we get into cyclic electron flow. So it only uses photosystem 1. And the Calvin cycle needs more ATP than can actually be produced. So NADPH piles up. And so basically what happens is the electron goes down the electron transport chain, same as it would before. But then, instead of going to the final electron acceptor, it goes back up to chlorophyll A. And this causes a cycle. That same electron is going up and down the electron transport chain. And what this does is create ATP via chemiosmosis. And that is the light reactions, and I hope that was helpful.